Vsauce has undoubtedly one of the most popular educational brands out there. With their founding success through YouTube, they've started several channels through their time on the website. Most popular are the three main Vsauce channels, which are hosted by Michael Stevens, Kevin Lieber, and Jake Roper, with each of them respectively producing thought-provoking content for the channels they reside on. The story of Vsauce isn't one that starts with education though, but instead focuses on entertainment, using it to teach us about the world around us. Above all, Vsauce promotes thought and interest, with the goal of making people curious about the universe that surrounds us. Much of their brand thrives off of the 5 W's, with popular videos like What if everyone jumped at once? Why do we kiss? Or How high can we build? Topics like these are used to celebrate science, making a point to explain exactly how something works. In the words of Michael Stevens, the point is to bring people in with a great question, make them curious, and once they're there, accidentally teach them a whole bunch of things about the universe. But to understand why things are how they are now, we need to go way back and see how it all started. The beginnings of Vsauce and the idea behind it starts all the way back on January 23rd, 1986, when Michael Stevens, the original creator of the Vsauce channel, was born. He grew up in the town of Kansas City, Missouri, and while looking back at his childhood, it actually explains quite a bit about who he is now and how it shaped the type of content he and others produce today. Probably the most influential to him as a child were his parents. His mom worked in a local school system and his dad was a chemical engineer. This fact alone helps to explain his immediate interest he would have in educational topics. In addition to this, as a child, Michael's dad used to take him to science shops and museums quite often. Places like this is where Michael ended up growing an interest in buying many scientific toys, with them usually revolving around physics, puzzles, illusions, and others, which helped pique his interest as a kid. He even started to grow quite a large collection of them. To this day, his collection grows ever larger, with these toys being displayed in some of his videos, on his desk, at his house, and other places. But aside from his parents and his toy collections, one of the biggest factors that influenced and inspired the content he currently produces was Paul Zaloom, who is best known for the role he played as the character Beakman on the TV show Beakman's World. As a kid, Michael enjoyed the show so much that he even dressed up as Beakman for one Halloween. When he was a teenager, he was even fortunate enough to meet him in real life. Michael has gone on to state that this show, Beakman's World, is what made him want to share his enthusiasm for the facts about the world around us. Eventually, at the age of 5, his family moved from Kansas City, Missouri, to Stillwell, Kansas, where he attended Blue Valley High School. But if you thought high school would have been enough learning for him, you would be wrong. Along with keeping up with his schoolwork, he read every single scientific book his library owned, was on the trivia team, and during the summer, he went to space camp for 3 years in a row. Even though some might say he's a genius, Michael didn't actually do too well in math and in his debate club. He specifically stated that he didn't do too well in debate because he wasn't very organized. Outside of his more academic interests, he also wanted to become an actor or performer. Because of this, Michael used to act in plays and musicals that his school would set up. Typically, he ended up being casted as an older character, like a dad or a teacher, due to him looking older and out of place with the rest of the kids. Michael also did all sorts of unusual stuff, eventually getting to be known as a bit of a class clown. His interest in acting caused him to really focus on his character. He even taught himself how to raise an eyebrow just to make himself stand out more. It was around this time that Michael discovered a competitive speaking program. In the very first tournament he ever entered, which was an event on informative speech, he got first place. He won the tournament because of his 8-minute speech that explained everything you could ever need to know about ketchup. The title of his speech was cleverly named Ketchup on Ketchup. Michael really enjoyed speaking and found that he was quite good at it. This is when he truly started to learn that anything can be fascinating to anyone, depending on how you present it. Ever since then, he's followed this philosophy throughout his work. But little did he know that his interest in education, performance, speech, and soon-to-be video production would all come together in the next several years. It was in 2004 that Michael finally graduated high school, but not long after that, Michael chose the University of Chicago as his college of choice. He attended said college for a bachelor's degree in neuropsychology and English literature. Michael had always wanted to be a scientist, but he still participated in theater even during this time. But alongside theater, he worked as a research assistant for his college's psych lab. Despite how busy Michael had been with all of his studies and everything else, college is where he would have his attention split once more. At first, everything seemed to be going as planned. College was going well, and he was learning a lot. Something had started to change though. A larger and larger group of people were starting to get caught up in this new trend. This new trend was the internet. In around 2006, YouTube and the internet were still quite new to the mainstream at the time. And like all of us, Michael wanted to know what the internet was all about. While his awareness of the internet probably came before this time, it wasn't until 2006, on October 20th, that he made his very first YouTube account, which would later be used to host his very first few videos. At the time, Michael had no intention of using the account for anything more than watching videos that required you to sign in, particularly the sketches by the comedy group Stella. For this reason, the channel was basically used as a throwaway account. With that in mind, Michael used the brilliant name of Poopleaker888 with the lack of any concern for professionalism. But now that he was more engaged with internet culture, he continued to watch YouTube and the other sites he participated in. It wasn't long before he stumbled across a video that would, dramatically enough, change his future.
I am your new foster father.
I'd do anything. Climbing up on Salisbury Hill.
I love it.
I could see the city light.
This video, called Shining, was a parody trailer which gave Michael his first look into the magic of video editing. The video itself pretends to be a trailer for the widely known psychological horror film, The Shining, and makes it appear to be a fun, summer movie that you could calmly watch and laugh at with your family. This concept of changing the whole appearance and tone of a movie using video editing got Michael to be very absorbed in the topic. His curiosity ultimately peaked when he decided to join the video production club at his college. One of the very first videos Michael would produce in this video production club was a video titled Ferris the 13th. The video at hand was heavily inspired by the previously mentioned video, Shining. In fact, the whole concept of the two videos were identical. In Michael's video, he takes audio from the trailer for the movie Friday the 13th and puts it on top of scenes from the popular film Ferris Bueller's Day Off with the intention of making the movie look like a horror film.
The 13th. On a June night in 1980. Friday the 13th. 12 of her friends were murdered. But now, the mindless, murderous fury.
Just as Shining changed the meaning of the movie The Shining, Michael's video, Ferris the 13th, changes the meaning of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. During these days of the internet, YouTube wasn't nearly as big as it is now and wasn't considered the primary location for video sharing. Because of this, Michael uploaded his videos to other sites as well, like Funny or Die, College Humor, and a few others. You can even still view the accounts that he had on these sites to this day. Michael had no expectations of success for the videos he was making, which made it all the more surprising when Ferris the 13th did extremely well on College Humor. Because of the success, Michael was noticed by Jeff Rubin from College Humor. After noticing Michael, Jeff personally sent Michael an email explaining how much he loved the work he was doing and asked Michael to send any new videos he would make straight to him so they could be uploaded directly to the website and gain even more traction. The success of Ferris the 13th was hugely impactful for Michael. If that video wouldn't have gotten so much attention, Michael might not be making videos to this day, as pointed out in a comment he left on the video when looking back at it. But thankfully, this newfound popularity was what convinced him to apply for a grant in the field of video production that his college was offering. To his luck, he ended up getting the grant, and with this new grant money, he spent the next summer working on making videos for a new channel. His new channel was created on May 22nd, 2007, and was named Campaign 2008. The sole purpose of this channel was to make fun of all sides of that year's election. The channel lasted as long as the election did, and ended in September. Both channels, Bootlicker 888 and Campaign 2008, were used for as long as Michael was in college. Bootlicker 888 ended up with a total of 14 public videos, and Campaign 2008 ended up with a total of 10 public videos. But what came next is why he retired his work on both channels altogether. It was because of the politically comedic videos that Michael was making on Campaign 2008 that he had gotten the attention of Ben Rellis. Ben Rellis is important because he was a major contributor to the channel that used to be known as Barely Political and or Barely Digital. Because the content being produced on Campaign 2008 was similar in style and topic to the videos being produced on Barely Political, Ben eventually asked Michael to be an editor and producer for Barely Political and to start making content for the channel. Michael accepted this offer and was hired by Next New Networks to do work for Barely Political, though he didn't officially become an employee until after his college graduation. When this time came, Michael moved to New York City in September of that year to finally be a part of Next New Networks. It didn't take long for Michael to decide that he was no longer going to pursue a career in the field of psychology, but instead go further down the road of film and video production. This choice was made permanent because of how much he enjoyed his time working at his new job. So what did he do there? Well, he described a process where he would remix some of his own stuff and even other work, like the songs by Mark Douglas. Aside from that, Michael worked mostly as a cameraman and video editor. Over time though, he started to make an appearance in these videos. If you go to the channel, even to this day, you can still go back and see many of the videos that included Michael, whether it be as an extra or because he fit the role. Eventually, Barely Political had to come to an end. The fact that the whole channel was based around the 2008 election set a timer as to how long the channel could last, and before they knew it, the election was long over. It was time for them to find something new to do with the channel. In the light of this, the channel was renamed to The Key of Awesome, which was a new musical series of theirs. The channel was now focused on all sorts of musical parodies. They would take a popular song of the time and make a remix of it, adding new and comedic lyrics. But there was one problem. Michael had no musical talent. Of course, he was still working behind the scenes, but they wanted to give him a role. With this in mind, they made up a character that Michael could play, named the Bearded Nun, which was a completely silent character. Unexpectedly, the Bearded Nun became quite the fan favorite and eventually saw great popularity. This was the first time in any way that Michael himself was the focus of attention. Never before had so many people known about him. It was because of this popularity that he continued using the character in other videos of theirs, like the highly successful Lady Gaga Judas parody where Michael shaves off his beard. Due to the fact that Barely Political, or The Key of Awesome, was focused on musical comedy, a number of people working there had to have an understanding of music. One of those people is a name you might recognize as Jake Chudnow. Jake is known as the main artist behind a great deal of songs commonly associated with Vsauce. These songs include many of the ones you've been listening to now. But what's important to note is that Michael and Jake have known each other in real life and first met due to their jobs at Barely Political. Jake can actually be found in a few of their videos, like when he played the character, the Prince of YouTube, in a video with Michael titled, "We Broke YouTube." Overall, his time at Barely Political, or The Key of Awesome, was an amusing start to his career online, to say the least. He made a lot of friends, learned a lot about the internet, and got his chance to be a performer. But things never stay the same, so it wasn't long before new, more familiar projects saw the light of day. The start of Vsauce really starts with Next New Networks, which was one of the very first multi-channel networks. Next New Networks was a company that hired people to do work on other channels like Barely Political, which was also owned by Next New Networks. This made everyone that made videos for Barely Political a Next New Networks employee, which included Michael. After a while of working at Next New Networks, Michael was asked to create and host his very own channel. Even though this would be his own channel, he still had limitations on what he could make. The content they wanted his new channel to be producing was a form of video game comedy, something that was becoming exceedingly popular with content like Smosh's video game-centric videos and the Angry Video Game Nerd series. So with this new idea in mind, they had to come up with a name for the new channel. The name that was originally proposed to Michael by the higher-ups at Next New Networks was Video Game Nation, which Michael thought sounded too cliché and had his own ideas in mind. So despite their suggestion, Michael went on to choose something a little different. It was just another random day. Michael was searching the internet and happened to come across the website fakenamegenerator.com. He sat there and refreshed the page a few times until Vsauce.com came up as an available English domain name. So that was it. As simple and as fitting as it is, the name was given to him at random. He liked the name Vsauce because it could be anything and everything. If he used this name for the new channel, he wouldn't have to change the channel name if he wanted to do something new. Vsauce would never be restricted in the same way that Video Game Nation would be. If he wanted to change his content in the future, he could. This sort of restriction can actually be seen in Michael's past, with channels like Campaign 2008 and Barely Political. It's hard not to look at a decision like this without getting the idea that he didn't want to make video game comedy for the rest of his life. With that in mind, Michael recommended the name Vsauce, which was accepted and promptly used as the channel name. Unlike most YouTubers, Michael started out making videos for Vsauce as his career. Working on Vsauce was and is his job. But even though he had control over the channel, it originally started out as a collaborative project with multiple hosts. The first video ever uploaded to the channel was on June 24th, 2010, and is titled Top E3 Rumors You Missed. The video at hand didn't include Michael at all, but instead was hosted by Adam and Jeff from the channel Wacky Gamer Comedy. The channel back then was drastically different from what we know it as today. Michael's actual first video was the extremely childish yet successful Mario Farts, like what Michael's content had been for years at that point. At this time, everything he made was mostly just lowbrow humor, the only difference now being that it involved video games. Speaking of which, despite the name Vsauce being used to avoid the video game restriction, the official, verified Facebook page for Vsauce has the URL Vsauce Gaming. The channel itself has never been named that, but it's intriguing to see that even to this day, the Facebook page retains this title. In a way, the channel's history of being a gaming channel will always stick around to haunt them. Michael has, on occasion, stated why he wouldn't delete or private the old gaming videos on the channel despite how extremely out of place they are these days. He said that he feels they hold a special place on the channel and serve their own purpose. He doesn't mind people seeing what he used to do because he's not scared of it. And honestly, he has no reason to be. Yeah, they're childish and obnoxious, but I think it's important to see that you should never do just one thing. You can change, grow, and evolve, which is exactly what Michael did. When Michael first became a part of Barely Political, he was hired by the company that owned the channel. This company, as you know, was named Next New Networks. At the time, they were an independent company and hosted a great deal of channels. Because Michael was simply an employee of Next New Networks, he was working on both Vsauce and the Key of Awesome at the same time. But unknown to Michael, one of the biggest changes to his life and the Vsauce brand was about to take place. In 2011, multi-channel networks like Machinima, Maker Studios, and obviously Next New Networks and more were starting to increase in success on YouTube. So in order to do some testing of their own, YouTube got in contact with the higher-ups at Next New Networks and arranged a bit of a deal. Officially, YouTube had purchased Next New Networks and changed it into the YouTube Creator Academy, effectively turning Michael into a Google employee. Because Next New Networks was now owned by YouTube, they gained ownership over every channel under the network. These channels would now work in a division of YouTube called the YouTube Next Lab. During this time, Michael was working at a small studio in New York City with a few other YouTubers from Next New Networks, such as Indie Mogul, Threadbanger, and a few others. YouTube bought Next New Networks because they had an interest in figuring out what precisely makes entertaining and successful content from a creator's standpoint. They did this through experiments they tested on videos and a select few channels, known as lab channels, which Vsauce was a part of. These tests were meant to see how well products and features would work on YouTube. Aside from Michael's channel being used as a testing ground, Michael was hired to do more than just content creation. Instead, Michael also had his own job at YouTube working as a content strategist. Being a strategist meant that he would work with brands and advertisers to help ensure they could effectively use the website to its fullest capacity through the use of analytics. Simply put, he helped companies succeed on YouTube. It wasn't just companies though. Another part of his job was to help out other smaller YouTubers succeed on YouTube as well. Being a YouTube employee also meant that Michael got to attend a monthly meeting at YouTube discussing the future of the website. As he said, they never really took his advice too seriously and pretty much ignored him. They didn't really care what the YouTubers at Next New Networks were making and didn't command much administration over their content. While working at Google, Michael was sent all around the world to many of YouTube's locations. One of his favorite places to be was London, England, partly because of the team there and because of his love for the location itself. Eventually, because he liked it so much, he decided to permanently move there in 2012. To Michael, this might have been the best decision of his life. It was here when he even met his future wife and eventually got married in July of 2016. At this point in time, because he was working with Google so much, he didn't have much time for Vsauce and entirely moved on from Barely Political. But as time went on, as the Vsauce channel continued to grow in popularity, he decided to quit working for Google and do Vsauce full time. He still offered to help Google on the side, and Google still had ownership of the channel, but from here on out, it was just him and the channel. But that's not entirely the truth. Let's go back to 2011 and see why he started to care about the channel so much more. It's 2011. Google had been sending Michael all around to various locations for work, and Michael had been growing a larger and larger interest in the topic of hot sauce, peppers, and spicy things in general. Because he was going to so many locations, he had gotten the chance to taste many unique flavors. Michael, being the curious man he is, was compelled to do research on the topic. Specifically, why hot peppers are hot to begin with. One of the most captivating facts to him was the fact that peppers are only spicy to mammals, whereas birds and other type of animals don't taste it. This fact is important because it was the one that made Michael want to share everything he was learning about the topic. So that's exactly what he did. On May 20th, 2011, he uploaded a video called Hottest Peppers in the World. The video itself is very similar to what we now expect from the Vsauce channels today. In fact, if the video didn't do as well as it did, Michael might not have realized that there was an audience for educational content like that. The video did so well that his mom even shared it on her Facebook page. Why is this detail important? Well, Michael's mom wasn't the biggest fan of many of the videos he was making at the time, so to have her share it on Facebook showed that he was doing something worth her time. So the greatly curious videos we see today probably wouldn't exist if this specific video didn't do as well as it did. The video was part of a series named BOAT, an acronym for Best of All Time. Having series named with acronyms is something you would see from Vsauce quite a bit. BOAT was only one of many series that was running on the channel at the time. Another series he had on the channel was one called Vsauce Leanback. Leanback, one of the earliest series he had, was essentially a way to use the YouTube playlist function. He created a playlist that started with a clip of him introducing the video he was going to show and the topic of the playlist. That clip would end and the playlist would move on to the video he wanted to showcase. After that video, it would go back to a clip of him discussing what we just saw and what we were about to see next. It was a clever way of giving credit to the YouTuber that originally uploaded these clips. In this way, anyone could check out and visit the channel if they wanted to see more content like it, while also watching Vsauce. Mostly, the clips of Michael or whoever else would be hosting it would be uploaded on Unlisted on the main Vsauce channel. Another channel was created on April 18th, 2011, specifically for the clips of Michael used in the Leanback playlist. The channel was simply named Vsauce Leanback and can still be seen to this day. Oddly, every clip used on the Leanback channel for these playlists were left unpublic, meaning that the channel was filled with an assortment of random clips of Michael talking about random things. Another series Michael had going around this time was called Mindblow. The series was Michael presenting anything that could be considered mind-blowing in any fashion, whether that would be an image, a fact, a video, or whatever else that may be. The series IMG was a very basic series where Michael would take the best images submitted to him that week and use them in videos. The series Loot was another compilation series, this time taking the most bizarre, cool, and interesting things you can buy online or things people have purchased and showcases them for everyone to see. Dong was one of the most popular and still is one of the most popular out of all the series on the Vsauce channel. Dong is an acronym for Things You Can Do Online Now Guys. It also follows the compilation formula like Loot and IMG. The only difference here is that it showcases quirky and quizzacious websites that you yourself can visit instead of showing an image, fact, video, product, etc. Dot was by far one of the most significant series in this whole list. This came a bit later, but it was the first series to ask questions and research things on the Vsauce channel. It was presented in a video essay format that we have come to associate with the term Vsauce. The series has never really been branded as Dot, but for as long as he's been making these videos, they've been added to the Dot playlist. The series includes the biggest and most recognizable videos Michael has ever made, like Is the Earth Actually Flat? Is Your Red the Same as My Red? What's the Most Dangerous Place on Earth? And plenty of others, of course. The journey Michael took to get here may be one of the most recognizable YouTuber origin stories, but the amount of factors that built up to this point is incredible. Everything sort of just fell in place, as it always does. His parents got him interested in science, science got him interested in college, college got him interested in video production got him noticed by Jeff Rubin, his popularity got him to apply for a grant at his college, his grant money got him to work on Campaign 2008, Campaign 2008 got him noticed by Ben Relis got him hired with Next New Networks got him to make Vsauce, and Hot Sauce got him to make the videos he makes today. It's easy to forget everyone that helped Michael get where he is, but truly, people have always been around him in the content he's been making. Remember, before all the educational content, Michael wasn't the only host. Plenty of other people had their series. So aside from the series I already listed, there are plenty of other things like Up All Night, Vsauce WTFs, and of course the videos produced by the other hosts of the channel. But as Michael was looking for new hosts, he stumbled across someone that would be one of the very few to stick around and eventually become a permanent member of Vsauce. Kevin Lieber is most widely known as the host of Vsauce 2, but just as Michael has the story of creating Vsauce, Kevin has his own story, one of how he became known as a required part of the Vsauce network. Of course, these days, Kevin provides insightful commentary about science, bringing us a different style of Vsauce videos which has now been associated with Kevin. But it wasn't always this way. There was once a time when Kevin didn't know what Vsauce was, so let's go back and see the story of Kevin Lieber. It was in Long Island, New York, that Kevin was born on September 21st, 1983. He didn't spend much time there though, as Kevin grew up in Cooperstown, New York. After having some minor jobs, Kevin wanted to go out into the real world and get a more substantial career. He started where most people do, college. Kevin first tried going to Drexel University in Philadelphia. He went to study for a degree in computer science, but it wasn't long before Kevin realized that computer science just wasn't what he wanted to be doing with his life. So 3 weeks after he had began, he quit college for that reason, as well as the fact of how expensive college was. With no idea about what he should be doing, Kevin moved back to his hometown of Cooperstown, where he got a modest job as an usher for the Baseball Hall of Fame. After that job, he still wasn't sure what to do. In this loss of direction, Kevin looked towards his passion of playing music. Kevin would play the lead guitar, sing, and even write many of his own songs. But even with this passion, he wasn't sure where to go with it. After he told his parents about these plans, they weren't so happy with him and encouraged him to give college another chance. He finally agreed and started looking into somewhere new. Kevin would go on to attend the State University of New York. This time, instead of going for computer science, he pursued a degree in TV and digital film. A lot of the decision about going to this particular college was because it was much cheaper than Drexel and many of the other colleges he looked at. College is where Kevin would develop a passion for comedy, which would turn out to be a very important trait of his later on. He eventually became an editor for a comedic comic strip that was named The Leader Lampoon that would regularly be published in his college newspaper. This wasn't all that he did for the sake of his passion in comedy though. He would also become the director of an improv group named Random Acts. It started when Kevin was in a public speaking class. The person that was directing the group at the time had come to know Kevin from this very class. The director thought Kevin was so funny that she begged him to at least audition for the group, despite him explaining that he was nervous about the whole thing. But he did it anyway, and was accepted as a new member of the group. About a year afterwards, the first director left, giving Kevin the job as a new director. He stayed in the group for a few more years, but inevitably finished college, thus moving on from said improv group. But before doing so, he wrote, directed, and starred in a senior capstone film project named The Journey of Muriel. This film would go on to win a Gold Aurora Award in 2006, and was the perfect way for him to end his time in college. Directly after going to college, Kevin was given an internship at Late Night with Conan O'Brien. To him, this would solidify his career in entertainment. It was also this that led Kevin to discovering YouTube, which was the perfect platform for his own comedy. YouTube was more appealing to him than something like playing music with his band, because YouTube didn't require him to perform in front of a live audience, something he wasn't the biggest fan of because he was an introvert. So with that being said, he started his own personal channel on the 4th of July in 2006. For a long time, he branded himself as Julius Blue, a name that stuck around for quite a few years. He described himself as the comedian for weirdos, which honestly wasn't far from the truth. The first video of his was titled Legs, and was uploaded on August 29th, 2006. This video displays exactly the kind of content that he was going to be making back then. Initially, his content consisted of crude animations featuring a potato that could talk. These animations would continue all the way up until May 10th, 2008, when Kevin started to upload videos other than animation. While he still made the occasional video featuring potato trash, as he called it, he mostly focused on the other stuff. The animations simply took too long to make. As he said, he wanted to bring his attention to content that he could produce at a quicker rate. With him trying to create this new type of content, it wasn't long until he created a character that would show to be very important later, named Jerry Blue. Over time, he would use this character in videos where he would give advice in a parody-type fashion, as well as going on to discuss random topics that he could use for comedy. This, as well as plenty of other characters, parodies, and series, went on for a long time before he used this particular character for a series that he called Uninformed Video Game Reviews.
Greetings all in the internet realm, Jerry Bloop here with Uninformed Video Game Reviews, the series where I review video games that I've never played because I have no money of my own and I don't know where my mom is.
In this series, he would discuss basically any game he wanted to or was requested to do. These reviews would be, as the title says, uninformed. It's almost a way of making fun of other video game reviewers that will give a game a low score because they didn't understand it or weren't good at it. In the same way, Kevin's character, Jerry, was played off to be extremely ignorant of the game he was reviewing, playing it in a way that wasn't intended. This series of reviews was said to be inspired by people like the content creators The Angry Video Game Nerd and Pat the NES Punk. If it wasn't for the Uninformed Video Game Reviews, we probably wouldn't even know Kevin is the host of Vsauce 2. Even though this series wasn't all that he was making on the channel at the time, it was the one that got the attention of Michael Stevens, the main host and owner of Vsauce. It all started when Kevin received an email from Michael himself discussing the channel. Michael explained to Kevin that he enjoyed his content and asked if he would like to upload some videos to Vsauce, specifically the videos of him as the character Jerry Bloop, the uninformed video game reviewer. Seeing the large amount of people that were subscribed to the Vsauce channel, Kevin didn't hesitate to agree. Kevin was asked to be a new host on the Vsauce channel because Michael thought he was much funnier than himself. Nevertheless, upon agreeing to join Vsauce, Kevin uploaded his first video to the channel on August 18th, 2010. The first two videos he uploaded were originally on his own channel. To Kevin and Michael's surprise, how the fans reacted to Jerry Bloop wasn't as good as they had hoped. In fact, the Jerry Bloop videos didn't even do that well at all. So, due to the negative backlash, Kevin didn't upload any more than 2 Jerry Bloop videos to the channel, canceling the series on Vsauce altogether. There are many reasons why people didn't react well to these videos, but mainly, they weren't the biggest fan of his comedy, and many people actually thought the character Kevin was playing was a real person. After finding out that people weren't the biggest fan of Jerry, Kevin decided to try something else he had been doing on his own channel for quite some time at that point. The video I'm referring to is If Medal of Honor Came Out 60 Years Ago Parody Commercial Dub, which came out on October 16, 2010. Sadly though, this parody commercial was also poorly received by fans. In the light of this fact, it's pretty safe to say that people just weren't happy with Kevin's style of comedy. Something else to consider is that many, if not all of the videos that weren't hosted by Michael had a significantly worse like-to-dislike ratio. What this shows is that the subscribers favored Michael over everyone else, but Michael didn't give up on Kevin. He wanted to give him the chance to be a part of Vsauce and not have so much backlash. So instead of starting a new series, Michael had Kevin host an already existing series. It was on December 22nd of 2010 that episode 4 of the series, Mind Blow, was uploaded. The difference now was that Kevin took over for Michael and was now the new permanent host of this series. Kevin was finally given something that worked and went on to host every episode of Mind Blow afterwards. As the Vsauce channel grew older, hosts of the channel came and went. Most of the time, they would move on to work on their own projects, or just didn't see a reason to be uploading to the channel in general. But one of the very few people that stayed around was Kevin, mostly because of how well him and Michael got along. It was later decided that a new Vsauce channel was going to be made, with Kevin as the permanent host later in the channel's life. The channel was created on December 7th, 2010. According to Michael, the channel was created because it was the cool thing to do at the time. Basically, plenty of other big YouTubers had their own second channels, so it was decided that Vsauce should have one too. Of course, the channel was used to start new series like Boat and Back, and to move other series like Lean Back, Loot, and Mind Blow over from the Vsauce channel. The videos that were being made on Vsauce 1 mostly consisted of gaming and comedy related content, while Michael had intended Vsauce 2 to be more educational and discovery type content. This would keep the channel different from Vsauce 1 while still being the same sort of content. Michael was actually a lot better at creating the educational content for Vsauce 2 because of the fact that he knew more about it, whereas the gaming videos were harder for Michael to create because getting access to game footage wasn't the easiest thing back then, and Michael had never been too good or interested in video games. The video that Michael created about the hottest peppers in the world, the one that got him interested in making educational content exclusively, was uploaded on Vsauce 2 in the first place. With all the hosts of the many series across the channels, things were starting to become a bit confusing. What Michael realized is that having an individual host per channel would make things more organized, and it would suit the project as a whole much more than having anyone be anywhere. So Michael decided to take ownership of Vsauce 1 for himself and give ownership of Vsauce 2 to Kevin. Michael was confident in giving the channel to Kevin because of how long he had stuck around and how consistent he was in making content. Even though Kevin didn't always have the best jobs outside of Vsauce, he continued working on it whenever he could. Eventually, it paid off. Kevin started making videos for Vsauce full-time in 2011. Even though Vsauce 2 is focused on educational content these days, Kevin still adds a bit of his own style of comedy into his work. Kevin's personality and style of content all come together to create the distinct videos we see to this day. Over time, Kevin started to do more with the channel. He introduced a new series named BDP, Build It, Draw It, Play It, as well as a series named Thought Class. Since his time at Vsauce, Kevin has also gone on to speak at VidCon on making online content to better appeal to users, and at New York Comic Con on educating through pop culture. Aside from that, he's also hosted a panel at Expressi's Loop, a series of public events to develop local partnerships and encourage curiosity in scientific and technological breakthroughs, as well as hosting the Deadpool premiere with Ryan Reynolds. Of course, he has also collaborated with many YouTube channels, such as Pat the NES Punk, Threadbanger, Field Day, Science Insider, Nerdist, Wisecrack, and a lot of others. These days, Kevin has moved on from making content in series like Loot, BDP, and Thought Class, but instead focuses on educationally topical videos similar to what we see on the main Vsauce channel, as well as the occasional Mind Blow episode. And from here on until the end of Vsauce, Kevin will always be the host of Vsauce 2. Vsauce has always been a brand with multiple hosts, whether it be back in the days of gaming comedy or during the educational period. The difference between back then and these days is that today we can have confidence that these hosts will stay around. Jake Roper, as many of you know, is best known as the director, producer, and host of the YouTube channel Vsauce 3. Just as Vsauce 2 was a required part of the brand, Vsauce 3 is an equally important part to the Vsauce triangle. But what about Jake though? How did he come to be the host of Vsauce 3? Like everyone, it's best to start at the beginning. Jake was born on January 25th, 1987 in Washington, D.C. Though he was born in D.C., he actually grew up in Evergreen, Colorado. Regardless of where and when he was born, Jake has always been interested in cinematography and film. Ever since he was very young, Jake has been really into movies. Even as a kid, Jake preferred watching movies over something like playing video games or other activities. Starting as young as the age of 6, Jake and his brother would recreate movies they enjoyed and had recently watched. These movies included films like Powder and Jurassic Park. This is where his passion for making movies began. Starting with technically his very first video, which was the Jurassic Park remake, his childhood was full of experience for his life later on. As Jake grew older, his passion for film was overtaken by his passion for music. When he was a teenager, Jake would play drums and go out to LA every other week to play shows. Music has always been a big part of Jake's life. Even to this day, he has a SoundCloud page that features a lot of his recent work in music. But over time, Jake's passion for film and his passion for music would come together. After growing up in Colorado, Jake moved to New York at the age of 16. This is where he would live for the next 10 years of his life. Jake has also mentioned that New York has been his favorite place to live. Around the age of 18, Jake emailed plenty of record labels that he liked, explaining to them that he could and was willing to make music videos for them. Despite how many he emailed, only 2 actually responded. The first response basically explained that they weren't interested, but the second response got Jake excited. The other reply said that one of their bands was going to be coming through town that weekend, and Jake could have an hour with them if he wanted to make this music video he was talking about. Even though they didn't offer any sort of payment, Jake still accepted the offer, as it was the only chance he had to make this video. To Jake's surprise, the video did quite well. Because of this, the company that gave him the chance to make this video hired him to do even more work. Sometime after getting hired, Jake started working for another music company named Pitchfork. As time went on, Jake would go from one job to another. Eventually, he left Pitchfork and started working for Noisy, Vice's music channel. But his time at Pitchfork got him connections with another television network, where he eventually ended up producing a show for Fox. Then, while working at Fox, Jake met a person who would introduce him to someone that worked at Google. So obviously, the next step was to eventually get a job at Google, which Jake did. But before he got a job at Google, it took him a while to firmly realize his passion. Jake wanted to be making commercials and music videos, which is why he went to the School of Visual Arts in New York, where he got a bachelor's degree in film and video. Aside from that, he also took classes in psychology and modern literature. So of course, after college, he did exactly what he wanted to do, which was directing advertisements, making music videos, and TV production. But something wasn't right. Even though he was doing exactly what he wanted to do, he wasn't happy. He felt as though working in this area of media made him lose creativity. So it was because of this feeling that he started looking for something new, anything new. He tried all sorts of stuff. He applied to college again, but this time for computer science. He also wanted to be a chef, so he applied to culinary school. It wasn't until he started working for YouTube that he decided to put those things to the side and continue with what he was working on. With that being said, Jake started working for Google at YouTube in 2011. When Jake started working at Google, he got hired to do work in a recently created field of the company with the recognizable name of the YouTube Next Lab. It was here that they had Jake make a channel named Space Lab, where Jake would be directing the channel for the next year and a half. On this channel, the multiple hosts would discuss space and everything there was to know about it. One of these hosts was Michael Stevens, someone that was also working at the YouTube Next Lab at that time. So this is where they met, at the YouTube Space in New York. Michael and Jake got to know each other because they sat next to each other during their meetings at Google. Since Jake started to know Michael better, he had him host some of the episodes for Space Lab. It was during this time that Michael and Kevin were already hosting the first two Vsauce channels, but Jake had no affiliation with Vsauce yet. But eventually, Michael asked Jake if he could edit a few episodes of the series Dong, which Jake agreed to. After doing a bit of editing for Vsauce, Michael offered Jake the position of channel manager for Vsauce. Michael considered Jake to be so good at his work that he felt Jake could do more than just edit videos. But instead of becoming a manager, Jake proposed the idea of creating his own channel. Vsauce 3 started and was now a reality. The channel was originally used to push all the extra series that they didn't want on Vsauce 1 and 2 onto the new channel. You now had Vsauce 1 with Michael as the host, Vsauce 2 with Kevin as the host, and all the extra stuff they didn't want on Vsauce 1 and 2 would be pushed to Vsauce 3. So again, just as every channel started, Vsauce 3 had multiple hosts when it first began. The very first video uploaded to the channel was on September 12th, 2012, which was a new episode of the series Video Game WTFs. This video was hosted by Kevin from Vsauce 2. It was also that same day, September 12th, that Jake uploaded his very first video to the channel as well. The video was the start of a series named App All Night. This series specifically showcased cool, fun, or interesting apps that you could download and play. Aside from Jake and Kevin, another host named Joey from the YouTube channel Clan of the Grey Wolf was also creating videos on Vsauce 3. The channel was based on the topic of fiction, whether it be questioning the science of video games, exploring the oddities of glitches, or shopping for your favorite fictional merchandise. For a long time, Jake would work on Vsauce 3 part-time, and he would also work with Google on Space Lab part-time as well. But a point came when Kevin decided to focus solely on Vsauce 2, Joey moved on, and Jake had to make a change. So it was decided that Jake would be the sole host of Vsauce 3, and gave ownership of Space Lab to Scientific American, after which the channel name was changed to Scientific American Space Lab, and still remains this way even to this day. Vsauce 3 evolved in a very similar way to Vsauce 2, as it slowly moved from making videos that were part of a series like Dong or Loot, to basic video essays on a topic or question, over time getting rid of the episodic series, and moving more towards one-off masterpieces. Jake never thought he would be hosting any kind of show, especially Vsauce, of all things. He always figured that he would be the guy behind the camera directing everything. So even though he had no idea that he would be making the kind of content that he does, Jake liked it. After working in more traditionally professional environments, Jake stated that he feels much more comfortable working on projects that he has full control over, like his YouTube videos, for example. After going through many various career paths, Jake found that YouTube was the best way to do what he had in mind. The freedom he has in creating videos is something that would be hard for him to give up. Even though science has never been one of Jake's primary interests, it's something that he still finds quite fascinating and worth his time. It still allows him to be creative with the cinematography, script, and music, which are the most important parts to him. These days, Jake takes so much care of his videos that they can take months to polish and finalize. With the interest of producing the highest quality content possible, Jake has claimed to have spent a great deal of money on individual videos alone. These costs have added up to as much as $3,000 on his most expensively made video. Even though that's fairly cheap for something like the film industry, that's practically unheard of for YouTube standards. For the amount of effort his videos contain, the topics he chooses have to be something special or important. Forming an idea for a video, Jake usually starts by letting music inspire him. He's gone on to say that music is a huge driving factor in his work, as it's something very important to him. As he casually listens to music, he might and has formed ideas of how he can present and tone the style of the video. In combination with that, Jake starts research with a basic Google search on a topic of interest, where he'll look for sources, books, facts, or any form of extended knowledge he can find. While sifting through multiple articles, facts, and discussions about a topic, Jake will take notes of important bits that he specifically wants to discuss in the video itself. From these notes, Jake will write a script and see how it turns out. Once he finishes the script, he'll find the right music he wants to use, then go on to do all of the filming and cinematography for it. He takes all of that, has it edited together, and has now completed a Vsauce 3 video. In fact, all three Vsauce channels follow a very similar style of research and processing, with only a few minor changes. But Vsauce has never been and will never be Jake's only project. Jake has always been pushing for bigger and better projects, and one of the hardest working members of Vsauce. Jake goes beyond even just Vsauce and contributes to so much more. On April 16th, 2014, Jake created his own personal YouTube channel using the name Jake Roper as the username. Having his very own YouTube channel to do whatever he wanted with is something he had never had before. The first video was uploaded on July 15th, 2014. It was a behind the scenes of a video he made on Vsauce 3 titled 6 Wii U Facts, Fact Surgery. He continued the channel by starting a series named Taco Time, made multiple Q&A videos, and or did whatever he wanted. As the channel grew older, it became a bit of a hub for him to put his thoughts and emotions about things onto the internet. Lots of this content specifically would reflect a lot of introspective ideas and thoughts he had, such as the video of him talking about giving up, difficult decisions, his biggest mistake, and others. These videos can often be serious topics, which makes his content akin to having a deep conversation with him. Despite that, it's impressive how well he's been able to manage his time on not only this channel, but everywhere else. But if you thought working on both Vsauce 3 and his personal channel would have been enough, Jake shows us how much more is truly possible. In addition to what's already been discussed, Jake has been featured as a speaker on TEDx Talks, at VidCon, Playlist Live, New York Film Festival, Tribeca Film Festival, New York Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, as well as other events in addition to those. Aside from events, Jake has worked with a great deal of other popular personalities. These includes the likes of H3H3 Productions, Zydubs, Cartoon Hangover, Sesame Street, Good Mythical Morning, Shoutmakers, Threadbanger, Newform, Michaela Snow, Top Geek, Corridor, Serial Time, Star Talk, Austin Evans, Ellie Awesome, Braincraft, Jack Black, Paul Rudd, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Did You Know Gaming, ASAP Science, and so many more. Not only that, but Jake has worked with Taco Bell and has gone on record saying that he would one day like to make a movie. But probably one of the most well-known ventures of his is when he helped start a company named Beam. March 31st, 2017 is the exact day that Jake had officially announced that he had joined a newly formed company named Beam as director of production. The best way to describe the company is as a media production company. The whole point was to release videos, apps, and whatever else was going to be coming from the brand. Beam itself was founded by the popular YouTube vlogger Casey Neistat. It was early in 2017 that Jake received a call from Casey about a project he wanted to discuss. He asked Jake to fly out and have a meeting with him and the others. With interest, Jake accepted the offer and came to find out about Beam, which was just a concept at the time. After finding out what Beam was and how he could help, it was permanently decided that Jake would join, which was followed up with the announcement later on that month. So why did Casey call Jake and not someone else? Well, Jake and Casey have actually known each other since around 2009. They initially met because Jake worked on helping edit a documentary Casey was making. After working together, they stayed in touch all the way from then until now. So after Casey had started the media branch of the company, he figured that Jake would be one of the most suitable people for the job. While working at Beam, Jake would be going back and forth from New York to Los Angeles due to his job with Vsauce and his job with Beam. This ended up splitting his attention, causing it to be harder for Jake to focus on one specific project, which makes things a lot more impressive knowing that he actually managed to do so. Though, Jake has gone on to state that he prefers working on just Vsauce compared to Vsauce and Beam at the same time. Something important to note about Beam is that it was owned and funded by CNN, the vastly larger media company. With them having jurisdiction over what happened at Beam, they eventually started to see less value in letting it continue. So on January 31st, 2018, it was announced that CNN was shutting down the Beam News division of the company, which included Jake and 21 other people. Thankfully, everyone that was part of this 22-man team was offered a job at CNN, giving them no worries about their financial futures. Jake declined the job offer from CNN and instead decided to put his attention back into Vsauce. Even though the verified announcement that Beam News was closing was on January 31st, Jake and the rest of the team found out on January 25th, which just so happens to be Jake's birthday. Jake discussed the whole experience in detail on the H3 podcast, saying that he woke up to receiving texts telling him happy birthday and asking what happened to Beam. In the moment, Jake had no idea what they were talking about, which prompted him to Google it. This search led him to a BuzzFeed article declaring that that Beam was going to be shut down. This was all new information to him, the reason being it wasn't meant to be announced yet. What happened is that Casey made a vlog explaining what happened to Beam, but the video was made public earlier than intended. Even though Casey took the video down, many people had already found out, including those who wrote the BuzzFeed article about it. So Casey's video would be set public later in the future, but the article would remain up, open for everyone to see. Before this happened, Jake had a suspicion that it would end because he could tell something wasn't right. At first, Jake thought that the only change coming to the company was that Casey was leaving, and expected Beam to be in operation for at least the rest of that year, but instead, he came to later find out that everyone was leaving. Jake doesn't regret the time he spent working at Beam, though when looking back at it, he says that things probably could have been handled a bit better, considering things would drastically change out of nowhere. The last video he would make during this time was the video titled "Why Iceland is Perfect for Crypto Mining." Casey and Jake had plenty of other ideas they wanted to work on together, but sadly were never given the chance to fulfill any of them. In fact, Jake and Casey never really wanted to be full-time members. The plan was to help things get started up, then make their own projects under the Beam name when they felt like it. Sadly, they never got to that point. Working with Beam gave Jake the chance to do something a bit different and more of what he wanted to do, even if he never entirely fulfilled that dream. Of course, as all things go with Jake, Beam wasn't his only big project. While working with Beam and Vsauce at the same time, Jake had also gotten a job working with MTV. The job was to host a scientific commercial for the movie Alien Covenant. It was planned to have him host multiple other ads, but as of right now, only one single one has been released. His job there included writing and hosting. Everything else was directed and edited by people other than him. With everything I just said, why does he do it? Why does Jake push himself so hard to put out as much media as possible? Well, he's always been a hard worker, but more than ever since 2015. On November 25th, 2015, Jake revealed on his personal channel that he had a rare form of cancer called sarcoma. With his life being at risk, Jake felt a greater determination to put himself out into the world and do stuff with his life than he had ever felt before, and reasonably so. This is why he joined Beam. This is why he works so hard. This is why he got a tattoo asking, "Why are you here?" His answer to the question being, to make something better than what I made before. Updates on his health continued through Twitter, and continued for a while. Finally, he posted a tweet to his personal Twitter account informing everyone that he was free of cancer. Jake could be more relaxed about his future and was now entering a new period of his life. Even though he will still have checkups for the next few years to make sure it doesn't come back, Jake can confidently say that he beat cancer. He went into further detail in a video on his personal channel titled "I Have a Secret." Jake is more than just the host of Vsauce 3. People like to say that Michael from Vsauce 1 is the dad of YouTube, and I understand where they're coming from when they joke about it. But following that logic, I'd like to think of Kevin as an uncle and Jake as a brother. Sure, it's all for comedy, but the three channels really make things feel like a Vsauce family, and Jake truly adds something special to it. I'm sure Jake will keep on working just as hard as he always has been, and every time, his work greatly pays off. Vsauce just wouldn't be the same without him. The last time we talked about Michael, he was making moderate videos answering an assortment of different questions. But ever since Jake and Kevin came on with their own channels, Michael and Vsauce itself have gone through quite a bit. To start, the Vsauce channels got a new look. Back when the three channels were first created, the Vsauce logo they were using was created by Nick Guinta. This logo was first used back in the gaming days of the channel. The outro that originally used this logo features an NES game cartridge being squished into the name Vsauce, which stems from the gaming origins of the channel. In addition to this, the recognizable font used in the Vsauce videos is named Alcina and was chosen because it most closely resembled the hand drawing of Nick Guinta, the creator of the original Vsauce logo. While this logo, as well as their iconic outro, fit the channel quite well, it was clear to Michael that Vsauce was developing into something more than just a single educational channel. To inspire a more professional feeling from the channels, the artwork originally used was replaced in December of 2014. The new logo and style of the channels was created by Natasha Jen and used DIN Next Rounded as the font of choice. This logo was designed to be a bit less literal, but instead give a more grown-up and mature tone to the whole project. Though, these designs kept the fluidity of the original, keeping in theme with the Vsauce type of idea. With all this new art, something you may have noticed about the channels is that their banners change every time a new video is made, newly representing the latest topic the channel discussed. And this goes for all three channels, not just Vsauce 1. At this point, Michael was taking Vsauce as a brand very seriously. Him, as well as Kevin and Jake, all lived in different parts of the world. Michael was still living in London, where he originally worked for Google at the time, but if he wanted to bring everyone together, something had to be changed. Keep in mind, Vsauce at this point was still fully owned by Google themselves, even if they weren't doing much with the channels. But as time went on, Google didn't have much of a reason to have ownership over them. So in January of 2016, Michael, as well as the rest of the Vsauce team, was given ownership of the brand. Finally, after all this time, Vsauce could move on from Next New Networks and be its own independent project. Conveniently, nobody had to pay to get the rights to Vsauce, as Google offered to give it to them for free. After leaving Next New Networks, Michael moved from London back to America, where he would go on to live in Los Angeles. Once they had separated from Google, plenty of changes started occurring. It was around this time that they got their own Vsauce workspace, where they would make videos together. Aside from this new working space, a few new people were hired to help out with the Vsauce projects. People like Eric Langley were brought on to do visual work with editing and sound control. Eric specifically is someone that Jake Roper met at college and has known for many years at this point, but was only later brought on as an editor. Then of course, they also brought on Alicia Garza as the coordinator, making everything work to schedule. Even though the faces of Vsauce are Michael, Kevin, and Jake, the team also includes the previously mentioned members, as well as Hannah, Josh, and most likely others. Music by Jake Chudnow is still being used even to this day, meaning you could also consider him part of the Vsauce team as well, even if he's not physically working there. Music used in videos these days also includes work published on audionetwork.com in addition to Jake Chudnow's work. Music has always been something that made Vsauce videos come off more entertaining. The way it's used to convey a mood really tends to strengthen the enjoyment someone can get from their content, and differentiates them from the rest of the science channels out there. The way music sets the mood of the video really brings you into the world of exploration and thought. Of course, it can be like this with all things, but it seems to be particularly strong with Vsauce videos. This is just one more thing I believe adds to the overall value and watchability of their videos, as well as making them more distinct, which overall strengthens the brand. With the new look, Michael would go on to further improve his content. What's interesting to note about this is that Michael's life didn't change all that much after he made the switch to make educational content. The sort of research he does for his videos is the kind of research he would be doing in his spare time while working a different job. As you may recall, he started educational content with his video about hot peppers, solely because he was researching the topic for himself at the time. Michael simply took who he was offline and put it into YouTube. Michael in real life has also been known to talk to himself, which is something he often does. One thing Michael will do is explain the littlest things to himself out loud, which is how he gets some of the ideas for videos, which his research process is very similar to. He'll often use what's known as the why game, which is when you continue asking why over and over again to yourself until there is no discernible answer, which helps him go deeper into a topic. Michael applies this to a lot of his videos and usually isn't satisfied until he's answered the majority of questions you can ask on a subject, or tell he has enough valid reasoning behind a topic. When planning a video, Michael will usually only pick topics that specifically challenge him. If he knew everything there is to know about a certain topic for a video, it either means he's already made a video about it, or he won't think it's worth taking the time to put that knowledge into a video. This is because he wants to learn with us, not for us. When presenting information in a video, it's usually only a fraction of what he learned in total. Something you may see in Vsauce videos from time to time is how many tabs Michael has open on his internet browser. He isn't lazy and doesn't feel like closing them. Instead, he said that he likes to keep them open as notes, instead of writing things down. But there's only so much information you can fit into a video before it's gone off subject, or gone on for too long. Another factor Michael has to take into consideration when presenting information is that viewers may not always understand some of the scientific terminology, which could hinder the enjoyment of the video. Part of what makes Michael's videos and the rest of the Vsauce team's videos so interesting to begin with is how well they explain things. The idea is to assume the viewer is very smart, but doesn't know many words. The reason why Michael likes going so in-depth with his content is because he wants it to be something unique. If you could find all the same information in a single article or Wikipedia page, then he wouldn't consider the video to be meaningful enough. He wants you to get interested in anything and everything. The goal is to take a video topic that generally sounds boring and see how engaging he could make it. This can be seen in some of his videos, like the one he made called the Berkristochrome. But because of how much time and research he puts into his videos, it can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to possibly several months before the next upload. Due to his infrequent upload schedule, Michael has feared that people might potentially forget or stop caring about him altogether. Despite that, on the rare occasion that a video is released, it always tends to get millions of views, with people flocking to see the newest upload. Michael honestly considers himself more of an entertainer than an educator. What he does is he uses education to entertain, using science to show how fun learning can be. As Michael has said, he wants his curiosity to be contagious, but he considers himself more of an entertainer than anything because he doesn't want people to get the false idea that he in any way has scientific qualifications, despite how debatable that truly is. The term scientific communicator is one that better applies to him and is a title that he wears proudly. He always tries to use his popularity to point attention towards the people that actually did the research in the first place, and respectfully attempts not to give himself credit for any of the information. All of his sources can be found in the description of his videos and are always encouraged to be looked at. Back when Michael first started making YouTube videos, he was doing what you could consider real science at a research lab in the University of Chicago. But Michael realized that he was better at explaining science than he was at actually working in science. Because of this, it dawned on him that he wasn't as good of a scientist as he would have liked to be. So he did his best by combining his knowledge and experience of performance with his knowledge and experience in science to make videos we see today. This is why some people compare him to people like Bill Nye, saying that Michael is like the Bill Nye of YouTube. But Michael has never liked this comparison, saying that you could never really replace Bill Nye. This frame of thinking shows that the way Michael presents himself is different enough to show his identity is unique enough to be seen by his own merits. Michael has an abundance of projects that he's worked on or been a part of. The projects he's worked on don't end with his own work, as we've seen a great deal of collaborations with him and others. Michael once spoke about this, saying that the key to success is to collaborate with as many people as possible. So of course, Michael has grown to have a pretty large and diverse audience by doing that. Some of the people he's worked with includes the likes of iDubbbz TV, H3H3 Productions, Joe Rogan, Jamie Oliver, Instant, Thinker, Good Mythical Morning, Psychopebbles, Into the Multiverse, the AU Review, YouTube Space, Sigma Z Science, UK TV, YouTube FanFest, Veritasium, Periodic Videos, Cartoon Hangover, Jenna Marbles, First We Feast, Sesame Street, Good Mythical Morning, Field Day, Jimmy Kimmel Live, BBC Earth Lab, Cisco Norway, Build Series, Euro News Knowledge, The Wall Street Journal, 60 Symbols, What's Trending, Neil deGrasse Tyson, What's the Big Deal, Levy Awards, Rhett and Link, Stephen Colbert, Braincraft, Nerdist, Filthy Frank, How to Basic, Max Mofo, Vlogbrothers, Chris Pratt, and far more that I can't list here. Aside from those collaborations, Michael has been featured as a speaker at TED Talks, being a part of TED Active 2013 and TEDx Vienna 2013. In June of 2014, Michael was also a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live and has spoken at Adweek, VidCon, MIP TV, and even given keynotes at FanFest India, Singapore, and Australia. He also worked with Cornerstones for Care, hosting a channel called The Diabetes Download, which serves to educate on the topic of diabetes. The videos Michael has created on the Vsauce channel have been featured on online news publications like the Huffington Post, Gizmodo, and CBS, as well as the channel winning a Streamy Award for the Best Science and Education Channel, Show, or Series in 2014 and 2015. Another significant project that Michael has been a part of was a series named Field Day. Field Day was a series that would feature and fund a well-known content creator such as Michael from Vsauce and allow them to have their very own day out in the field, so to speak. Field Day was started by YouTube, and it gave these creators the chance to do something of higher quality than they would normally do. In a way, it was a precursor to what we now know as YouTube Red or YouTube Premium. When Michael was a part of Field Day, it gave him the chance to actually show something and be there rather than just talk about it, which gave him the opportunity to explore in the town of Whittier, Alaska. In fall of 2016, Michael made an announcement that would go on to be one of the most expansive projects he's ever been a part of. The show was called Brain Candy Live, which was a live show from the mind of Adam Savage, who gained popularity from the hit Discovery Channel show Mythbusters. Adam created Brain Candy Live in collaboration with Michael. The two would go all around the United States to perform a mostly improvised science show. When Adam first came up with the idea, he wanted to find a touring partner. Michael, being a fan of Adam at the time, signed up to see if he could fill this role. To Michael's surprise, Adam texted him back and hit it off from there. After the two spent a great deal of time talking together, it was realized that they both had the same goal of bringing science beyond the screen. The show was pretty much just 2 hours of improvised science demonstrations, jokes, and Michael falling a lot. The show itself worked great with both Michael and Adam, since Michael already had a background in live performance going all the way back to high school, as previously covered. It was said that Michael's favorite part about Brain Candy is that he gets to be on stage during a live performance again, and the instant feedback he would get from the audience. The show was one of the most ambitious things Michael has ever helped put together. Though even with giant projects like this, his main Vsauce channel will always continue to be Michael's primary focus. Though despite how much time he put into Brain Candy, only one other project besides Vsauce has ever been bigger and more impactful than that. In early 2017, Michael announced his partnership with YouTube to create and promote a new series for YouTube Red known as Mindfield. Mindfield was much like Field Day, not only in name but in concept. Michael hosted a plethora of episodes where he would go out into the real world and redocument classic psychological experiments. This show has by far been the most highly funded project of Michael's. Michael enjoyed the fact that he knew they weren't going to fake any of the experiments, like many TV shows do. So because of this, it's no doubt that the first season stayed pretty safe. The result of these experiments were already on record, but not very well documented. This way, Michael wouldn't have to worry about being liable in any way if experiments went wrong, as they've already been shown to be harmless. The total time filming Mindfield Season 1 was around 4 months, but in between that time, Michael took some time off to go to VidCon as well as a trip back to London. But the rooftop scenes, where he appeared for a good deal of the show, were all shot in about 1 week. Mindfield has been shown to be one of the most successful and highest rated shows on YouTube Red, and for a good reason. It was very well thought out and produced. So due to this fact, plans were made to continue the series with Season 2. After a long time in production, Season 2 was announced and began on the same day of December 6th, 2017, but came to a close on January 3rd, 2018. When planning this series, Michael knew he couldn't just continue doing the same thing. He wanted to make things more interesting. So for this season, Michael brought in career psychologists to have them contact different universities in order to see what sort of new and untested experiments they could try out. The goal of this season wasn't to recreate anything we already knew, but instead was to add to what we know by actually doing some real science and figure things out for the first time. Michael had plans for other episodes aside from the ones he made, such as one where he would get waterboarded. These episodes got scrapped for multiple reasons, but mostly because there wasn't much gain from it, and it may pose too great of a safety hazard. The difference between Mindfield and his regular videos, aside from the funding, is that Michael gets the chance to do real-world psychology and science experiments. But even though he very much enjoys working on the show, he admitted in Season 2 that he prefers working on normal Vsauce videos over Mindfield. This episode specifically had Michael take Truth Serum to see how well it truly worked. After these seasons were released, questions were brought up about their veracity, basically asking if they were real or fake. While a few are still skeptical, Michael has said on many occasions that they are entirely real, and any sort of inconsistencies are due to minor editing errors, which even then he could admit look problematic. Michael actually wanted to include more footage and facts in these episodes, but was decided against when the producers got concerned that it might make things too boring for some people. But that aside, Michael had a great deal of freedom to do what he wanted with these episodes due to the fact that the show is premiering on a streaming service rather than a television network. Speaking of television, the idea for Mindfield was given to various television networks by Michael, only to have them reject it. But when YouTube came along, they decided to take up Michael's idea and include Mindfield as another new YouTube Red program. Now that that Michael had the opportunity to make this show, he didn't want to waste his chance. The lengths Michael went to get solid research for the series shows in the fact that he made himself the test subject in many of these episodes, instead of using someone else. This was most notable in Season 1, Episode 1, where he stays in an isolation room for 3 days, and Season 2, Episode 2, where he voluntarily takes the drug ayahuasca. Neither Jake nor Kevin have had their own series, nor have they been a part of the first 2 seasons of Minefield, but with Season 3 in the works, it's exciting to see what new possibilities there are. Overall, many consider Minefield to be one of the best, if not the best show on YouTube Red, for good reason. Michael has mostly been the focus of attention when it comes to Vsauce, whether it be going on tour, getting his own YouTube show, or whatever else. But the entire Vsauce team has always had their own endeavors as well. The Curiosity Box is a group project among Michael, Kevin, and Jake. To summarize, the Curiosity Box is a subscription service that will result in you receiving a package of exclusive scientific items from Vsauce 4 times throughout the year. The box itself was first introduced in Michael's video on the main Vsauce channel, How the Earth Moves. Part of the announcement explained that a portion of the money that comes from the Curiosity Box will go to Alzheimer's research. The reason Alzheimer's was chosen to donate to was because both Michael and Jake have had family members that have suffered from Alzheimer's, and because the whole idea of education and learning isn't possible without a healthy brain. Vsauce thrives off of knowledge, so for them, this is the perfect thing to put their time and money into. In my opinion, the best statement that was made regarding this box goes, "The Curiosity Box isn't just good for your brain, it's good for all brains." But before even the Curiosity Box, money was also being donated to Alzheimer's research through things like their merchandise. Without revenue streams like the Curiosity Box, it would be hard for the team at Vsauce to always prioritize quality over quantity within their videos. This quality shows in all of their work, including the box itself. The team spent around 2 years experimenting with other similar ideas like the holiday box that was available during the holidays of 2014 and 2015. The reason being, they needed to make sure they could put together projects like the Curiosity Box, which turned out to be helpful in the end. The whole idea of these boxes is that having a physical object in your hand is better than any verbal explanation they could give in a video. And Michael knows this from first-hand experience, considering his dad used to take him to science shops and museums like stated before. Michael liked the idea of the box because it gave him, as well as Jake and Kevin, the chance to give people the same experience Michael had as a kid. The items that they do choose to include are picked with great care. It can take months to finish picking out all the items they want to include. The whole project has been very carefully planned and thought out. The logo of the box is an octopus and was given the name Ink, short for Inquisitive. It has been said that the Curiosity Box is an expression of what Vsauce is, which makes sense considering how much time is spent carefully making sure everything works to plan. The whole thing started as Jake's idea, but was accepted as a Vsauce project to be promoted by everyone. Part of the reason they wanted to be independent from Google is because they wanted to start projects like this one, which they wouldn't have been able to otherwise while working at Google. But with this box, as well as their merchandise and others, only time will tell what they come up with next. Even though Vsauce is most commonly known from the channels Vsauce, Vsauce 2, and Vsauce 3, they've put their time into other channels as well. One of those channels includes Vsauce, which was a channel that celebrates the creativity of the Vsauce community. This channel was launched on July 25th, 2012. There are 2 main series that were once running on the channel, which were Your BDP and Jam. BDP is a series that originally started on Vsauce 2 and stands for Build It, Draw It, Play It. The difference now is that Your BDP takes creations from the Vsauce community submitted on Twitter or other locations. The other series, named Jam, stands for Just Awesome Music. This is the last remaining use of the playlists for the Lean Back series, but this time is just a playlist of music that you can listen to for different purposes. Aside from those 2 series, a few other series were started, but nothing ever came to be very prominent. Instead, the channel has kind of died off, without seeing an upload to the channel for more than 2 years. While the Vsauce team has seemed to have forgotten the Vsauce channel, they surely haven't forgotten their more recent projects. Dong is a series about things you can do online now, guys, and has had its time on almost every Vsauce channel. Out of every series that has ever been hosted by anyone at Vsauce, Dong has tended to be one of the most popular throughout time. So as time went on, and as the three Vsauce channels started to shift away from making these series, a good amount of fans started to become disappointed. There were a significant amount of people that had specifically subscribed to the channels for these type of series and didn't care as much about the educational type of content that they were now making. So with that in mind, a new channel was launched on September 2nd, 2015, named Dong. The series Dong now had its own YouTube channel, but not only that, it gave the series Loot a home as well. These two being the most popular, made perfectly logical sense to be on this new channel. The first announcement of the channel was made on November 1st, 2015, at the end of Michael's video, Juvenoia. But after a long time of only running the series Dong and Loot on the channel, the content started to see a bit of change. Michael eventually started another series called Michael's Toys, which takes some of his favorite scientific items and displays their properties on video. In addition to this, basic videos like ambigram art, magic spelling, or Lenz's Law, showing off or explaining something, are also common in these days of the channel. While the main three Vsauce channels put quality over quantity, Dong has a new video being released once a week. This keeps the content from them regular, showing to people that they're still around. Dong is a place that all three of them, Michael, Kevin, and Jake, can upload to. So in a fashion, it's similar to what Vsauce 1 used to be. It's funny to think that Michael uploads to Dong more often than he does his own channel, but it's understandable considering he spends a greater deal of time on his own videos. The channel is important, I believe, because it's nice to see consistent content from them, even if it's not their top-notch stuff. And in a way, I think it's a way of passing down that classic Vsauce spirit, even if it's just a little bit more refined these days. As we continue through life, and everyone will be out and about doing their own thing, Michael, Kevin, and Jake will all be working to improve their content and expand their audience. In fact, Vsauce has strived to push their media beyond YouTube through the use of shows like Brain Candy, merchandise like the Curiosity Box, websites like Vsauce.com, and adventures like the ones we'll see in the future. They do this because they know how unreliable YouTube can be, which at this point, Vsauce might just be able to survive without something like YouTube, but only time will tell. Even though they're always expanding the brand with new collaborations and channels, there have been no plans for anything along the lines of a Vsauce 4, or at least not for now, that is. Instead, they would rather focus on side projects like Dong. Michael has talked about naming the channels, saying that these days he would have rather named them after colors instead of numerically. Something like Vsauce 2 actually being named Vsauce Blue, and Vsauce 3 being named Vsauce Purple, or anything else they choose. Even though the channels do have assigned colors, which are green, blue, and purple, they have never had any real meaning. Apparently, these colors were picked solely based on what they thought looked nice. In total, they have a combined 2.3 billion views and 20 million subscribers across all the three main channels, not including Dong and Vsauce. They've made hundreds of videos and can be said to be the largest educational channel network across all of YouTube. How do you even conclude something as large as this? After being a part of so much, it's hard to even remember off the top of your head how much they've done. But to say the least, I'll give them credit for how much work they do and how well they do it. They're not like most YouTubers or content creators. They don't make videos just because they want money, they make videos because they genuinely care about making entertaining and enlightening content. The videos from all Vsauce channels have been showcased in schools and other places all around the world as educational content. This fact alone shows their dedication for accuracy, entertainment, and widespread appeal. It's quite admirable what they've done with not only their channels, but how they've impacted the YouTube community. The tremendous amount of large educational channels that have attributed Vsauce as an inspiration is truly astonishing. You can confidently say that the fame and success they have is well deserved. And you can learn an important lesson from the history of these three. When you take the time to make something special, to make something truly good and worth people's time, others will find the need to share your work and reward you properly. It shows that making quality your first priority, even over things like getting the best thumbnail, title, and whatever else, can and will pay off. Vsauce shows us that we can take a step back and forget about making something attention-grabbing, but instead remember what it means to be remembered. Their content isn't your average forgettable YouTube video. Most people will remember them because they take the time to make content worth remembering. And as always, thanks for watching.